Hello and welcome to today's sets of notes. We are going to be learning about the characteristics of life. As I'm going through this PowerPoint and this lecture, you should be taking notes in your packet using the graphic organizer provided. At the end of this section, you should be able to list the characteristics of living things and also apply the scientific methodology to determine if something is living or non-living. So the first characteristic of all living things is that they are made of cells. We have unicellular organisms that are made up of one cell. Uni means one, and then cellular means cell, so one cell. On the other hand, we have multicellular organisms. Multi means many, and then cellular means cells. So these organisms are made up of more than one cell. We also want to note here that cells are going to be the smallest unit of an organism that can be considered alive. All cells are also going to have four common components, the first being genetic material, more commonly known as DNA. They'll all have cytoplasm, ribosomes, and then a plasma membrane. Cytoplasm, ribosomes, and the plasma membrane are all organelles that we'll get more in detail with in Unit 3. Furthermore, there's two types of cells other than multicellular and unicellular, and those are prokaryotes and eukaryotes. First, prokaryotes, these are going to be unicellular cells with no nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. They only share those four common characteristics that we listed on the previous slide. Examples of here are archaebacteria as well as eubacteria. We then have eukaryotes, and eukaryotes are going to be unicellular or multicellular organisms. These organisms have a nucleus that contain their DNA. Some examples here would be humans, dogs, mushrooms. So I want you to pause the video here and list what is one difference and then one similarity between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Moving on, the second characteristic of life is reproduction. All living organisms should be able to reproduce to create new organisms. We call this heredity. The full formal definition of heredity is the passing of genetic information, aka DNA, from parents to offspring. There are two types of reproduction you need to know about, the first being asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction only has one parent, so it's a single parent organism. Offspring are going to be genetically identical to the parent. An example here is bacteria. In figure 1, we have E. coli bacteria, and the way in which asexual reproduction works is that this organism will divide into two identical cells. So it'll copy everything on the inside and then split directly in half. So we have more copies of that one organism. On the other hand, there's sexual reproduction, and this requires a mixing of genetic material from two members of the same species. So examples here would be animals. In the picture I have dogs, female dog and a male dog. Their DNA needs to mix together to create other puppies, other dog offspring. Third, all living things grow and develop. So single-celled organisms, those unicellular organisms, they can only grow, but multicellular organisms can both grow and develop. So the single cells, they can grow in size, get larger. The development that I'm talking about in the multicellular is talking about complexity, being able to specialize with different organs and organ systems. Moving on, we have obtain and use energy. All living things must use energy and consume nutrients to carry out metabolism. This metabolism is a bit different than the metabolism you think about when it comes to eating. Metabolism in biology is the total of all biochemical reactions in an organism. I want you to pause the video here and answer the question, what are 2 ways by which organisms obtain their energy? Hopefully you came up with the answer that there are autotrophs and heterotrophs. Let's go back. Autotrophs obtain their energy by creating different glucose molecules from the sun. They carry out what we call photosynthesis. On the other hand, heterotrophs get their energy by consuming. So they cannot make their own food from the sun. They have to eat other organisms, or they need to eat the autotrophs. So they eat other heterotrophs or other autotrophs. Examples of autotrophs: plants, algae, some bacteria, phytoplankton. Heterotrophs would be animals, fungi, protozoa, most bacteria. Humans are heterotrophs. Fifth, we have that all living things respond to stimuli. Stimuli are changes in the environment. Examples here could be light, it could be sound, it could be temperature change. In the video I'm about to play, we're going to see plants responding to the stimuli of physical touch. So that's just 2 examples of plants that respond to touch. Moving on to the 6th characteristic of life, homeostasis. Homeostasis, the definition, is the ability to keep a stable internal environment despite changes in the external environment. Examples of homeostasis in humans would be temperature control. For the temperature control in humans, we have a body temperature of around 96, 97, anywhere around there. When it gets too hot, our body controls the temperature by having us sweat. The sweat beads on the surface of the skin actually cools down the body, bringing us back to that 96, 97 degree temperature. On the other hand, when the body's too cold, when our temperature drops down, the body will start to shiver. Shivering is movement, and movement creates heat. So the shivers actually make us more warm in the cold, bringing our body temperature back up to that stable internal environment. We also have water balance as an example in humans. So when humans drink water, our water content goes up. The entire body's water content needs to stay about equal. So when we have more water in the body, our body will expel extra water from breathing. Some water beads come out of our breath, from sweat, from urinating, or bowel movements. On the other hand, when we are dehydrated, our body will start to take that water and urinate less, sweat less. Your breathing could slow down, your bowel movements can slow down to help keep that water level raised when the body isn't getting a sufficient amount. And lastly, the characteristic all living things share is evolution. Evolution is just change over time. In generations, traits that prove a survival advantage become more common in a population. These traits are called adaptations. In the image down below, you see the evolutionary tree tree of a tortoise, hare, wolf, leopard, and house cat. In this visual, the adaptations are listed in black. So hare, carnivorous, retractable claws, and purring are all seen as those adaptations that cause the species to change over time. And our last little part here, a summarizer. Mr. Gore hates cheese. It is a way for you to remember the 7 characteristics of life. So the M stands for made of cells. R is reproduce. In parentheses, you put DNA. G is grow and develop. O is obtain and use energy. R is respond to stimuli. H is homeostasis. And C is change over time. For this recap, just write this down on a scrap piece of paper. We'll be checking it together as a class at a later date. I need you to match the correct letter with the correct number. So number 1 says a pumpkin seed changes into a pumpkin vine with pumpkins. Number 2, new young organisms come from mature organisms. And 3, plants do photosynthesis and animals eat. Match the characteristic of life to each of those descriptions. When you're done, continue on to Schoology to find the next step for today. Thank you.